I'm here to share some of my experience. I've worked with Webpack for a couple of years, and for the most part, my experience with Webpack was like very blurry. Like I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I was just copy pasting stuff from the internet and putting and making it work. But after a while, I tried to like understand it better and trying to really see how it works under the hood, and it actually makes the experience of working with Webpack better. So I'm here today to share you with that experience, so it could maybe probably give you a boost in learning Webpack and probably make you want to work with Webpack. So let's continue. So Webpack is not actually a very popular thing on the internet. Like people like trolling it all the time. It's very hard. It's very boring. The configuration is just a lot. You have to know a lot before you become productive in the Webpack. But maybe I can show you a simple way of looking at Webpack. So this presentation is going to be a different way of looking at Webpack. This is another picture. So I promised you memes. So here I deliver. Here's another one. All right. So let's dive in. Just remember ESM and HTTP2 back of your head, and then it will get there. So let's start with some ranting, maybe. In JavaScript, in front end realm, it's usually you need to know a lot of like buzzwords, a lot of tools. What is npm? What is Node? What is Babel? What is Browserify, and what have you? Webpack, Require.js, AMD, UMD, a lot of buzzwords you need to know, or maybe you don't need to know. It's just there are lots of tools out there for you to use or understand the situation, the process, and it's very tiring, really. I think he has a really good depiction of the feeling. But anyways, I think the best way to understand what it is, what Webpack is, I think it's a good idea to start with the pain. Like, what was it the case that we had to actually create another tool for a front-end developer to fight the pain, basically. So yeah, let's go back far away, 8 years ago, probably farther back, but in that area, in that time, we had an era where we had to maintain our own index HTML, where we had to put all the CSS, all the JS files. Also, we had to make sure that they are in order. Otherwise, like the application wouldn't work. This is on my way. Oops. So yeah, it was a lot of work to make it work, and we had this situation because like sending JavaScript to the clients is not it's an expensive task. Like for the client to render the JavaScript, you have to pay a cost. This is one of the scenario that if you imagine that this is your index HTML, you're loading from the top to bottom. So whenever we get to the script, we have to stop rendering the entire page, load the file. I hope that you can see the font. I try to use the bigger font, but here is not that much big, but I'll try to explain everything. So we have to pause everything, fetch the script, run it, execute it, compile it, and then continue parsing the file, parsing the rest of the HTML. There are ways that you can do it in a better, more efficient way by deferring and async. I put a link here. You can take a look at it. It's really a good read. But overall, it's not as efficient to send many JavaScript files to the client. So what we ended up doing was to use the power of some of the tools like Gulp, Grunt, just throwing out some of the buzzwords that you may have heard. These are like kind of tools that we kind of adhere to in order to like fix all of these pains, in order to not to maintain the index HTML file ourselves, but to tell these tools to, yeah, go inside my folder and grab all of the JS files that you can find, just put it there, and go find all the dependency and put it there, and then put all the CSS file here. I don't need to care about anything. Maybe you can also figure out the ordering of these files, because the ordering also matters. So if you if your project like requires jQuery to use, and you don't import jQuery before your file, before your script, it's going to fail. So the order matters as well. So, but we use tooling such as some plugins in Gulp or Grunt to make sure that the order also fixed. This is the time where we didn't have module, and that was the problem that we were trying to solve. So then we got to the era where we thought to ourselves, like, why aren't we using module? Because if we use module, then we can define declaratively each file what it is dependent on. So we don't need to care about how we should order things on the client. And we have module support at the time in Node.js on the server realm, but we didn't have support for it in the browser. So the community came up with lots of tooling, lots of different ways of addressing this with different toolings, and one of them was, I believe, require.js. We have Browserify and some others. So this would be the syntax that you would see. This is still an old technology, like you wouldn't really want to do that in the front end. But anyways, this is the way that we had. And since we have this graph of dependency between the files, we could find a way that we could bundle all of these files together. So we could actually merge them without the risk of losing a script which depends on another script that was not run beforehand. But still, we had a problem with the resources, with the CSS, with the images, with the fonts. We had to make sure that in the production, we also copy those files from our dev environment to the production. So the process was not very straightforward. The configuration was very hard to read, and was very, very terrible time. So just to summarize, like, I don't know if you have been involved in situations where you had to, if you wanted to use a third-party library, you had to go to the website and download the JS file, or probably it's the CSS, the fonts, the images, and put it in your folder, and then try to make sure that you also copy them, but also the minified version of it to your production folder where the user can use. So that was the pain, like keeping up with the dependency and their updates was a very painful experience. The order of things mattered. Things were not modular. It was really painful because you couldn't really tell what part of the script that you're sending to the client is a dead code, because we didn't have that kind of reference between each other. Separation of resources, as I said, like the component didn't tell implicitly or explicitly what kind of media they are dependent on. So if we are using a user page, user component, we should also bring these icons with us. It was hard to configure and blah, blah, blah. So how does it work? I have some demo available. I have a few demo that I'm going to show. Let's start from actually test A. So I have, let me see if I can show both of them at the same time. There was a shortcut for that, forgot. Come on. All right. So we have a very simple application where we have the index file that just requires a lock function from another file. So this is the way that you would create a dependency. So this is what we call a common JS format, or CJS for sure, if you have heard the term here and there. And when we compile it, the result that you'll get is something of this sort. I will not go through this, but if you have question about that part of the Webpack, if you have seen it, I'm sure that some of you have seen it. If you have question about that part, I'm more than glad to talk about that after the talk. But what ends up in the Webpack is that we kind of like serialize them, but we put them in a closured kind of function. So each one of those modules that you saw earlier, so we had these two lines, and then we put it in the function. So if we have a variable inside, it will not leak out to the other part of the module. And other things would not, other things will leak in, but we don't have anything outside of this scope. And we just changed the notation of importing modules. So we are using something internally that is coming from these 80 lines. Should I zoom in, by the way? Can everyone see the code? Yeah? All right, I'll zoom out then. Just let me know if you can see the code. So they changed the require because require is not supported by a browser. In the browser, you want everything to be synchronous. Require is not a synchronous, well, it is a synchronous action, but if you implement require in the browser, it won't be a synchronous process. So what we need to do after the bundling, we kind of change that to like Webpack require. And the index that we are passing to is the index of the module that we are going to use that for. So for example, right now we have two, they're annotated by their comments as well. And there are this kind of connection. And also another thing that to point out that is important about knowing the Webpack is that I can maybe probably show you this part because I think this is kind of important coming handy later on, is that every time that you import a module, we will keep a cache of that module. So it doesn't matter if you have 5 files that depends on one file. If you import it once or 10 times, it's going to be included. It's going to execute it only once. After it's executed, it's going to be cached, and that code is here. And this is the same if you are running via ESM in Node.js, like natively, it's the same. Another way that you can import things is with this kind of, it's a very similar syntax to require, but this is what we call MJS, or ESM actually, yeah, not MJS. MJS is the extension. Confused, yeah. So it's the ECMAScript module. And yeah, it's just different way of expressing things. There are some differences, but not vastly different. For that, we will get the same result as well. But this is the expected way of working with JavaScript nowadays. I have another example where we have, again, an index importing a log, and then we have a helper that requires some third-party library. And we have we are exporting the function log, and we are exporting the function get sum. And if you look at, oh boy, if we, yeah, come on. If you look at 2 files side to side, you see that in this application, my entire application is just these 2 files. I'm not using the get sum, and therefore I'm not using the import that is coming from the Lodash. But if you run this with Webpack, see if I have already the compiled version of it. Yeah, I actually do. So I have this little helper under my my IDE that shows the size of the file. So this is currently 400K. So we have actually imported all of the things that that we don't even require. So my application doesn't depend on the sum, but just because I have imported in one of my file, it's going to be included in the bundle. This is not a good thing, right? We want to get rid of it. So Webpack, well, it's not Webpack. Webpack is using another library under the hood called Uglify.js, which is going to grab your bundle and is trying to kind of like, we call it shaking. It does a tree shaking on it, which means that it's going to look at index. It's going to look at all the dependency of helper and see, okay, the only people who are using my file is only interested in the log function. So I shouldn't really include the get sum, and I shouldn't really include the sum. So this is what it's going to do if I run. Wish I could show you. Yeah, let's. What? Don't move. That was not what I expect. Live demo panic. Yeah, like that working this way. All right, so I think I have Webpack here. Yeah, so npm run Webpack. And if you look at my Webpack configuration, it's running in production. So this is like a very simple case of a Webpack configuration. I'll get to all of these points, so no worries. You don't need to memorize anything. It all makes sense. So I have an entry point that is the source index, and then I want to output everything in main.js. So that's all it does, really. So let's run that. So it ran. Well, it's not fair because we are minifying as well, but this is like under 1K. We have removed all of those files that are not necessary. But the problem is that what if I do this? What if, even though that I don't care about the result of the sum, I'm still calling sum to, I don't know, for some reason, weird reason, don't do this at home. But yeah, you might do some, what they call it as a side effect. Where you just call some function where you don't even need to have a result. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe it was something else. Doesn't really matter. But my point here is that some of the times, even though that you have imported a library, you're not using it. Even though that you're calling it, doesn't do anything. Maybe it's just a configuration. Maybe it's just you're setting some kind of configuration. For Webpack, it's hard to detect that this line is not going to have any side effects. So what it's going to do when it's doing the tree shaking thing, that is going to remain in the bundle. So it is going to import it. It's going to to have it in bundle. So if you run it again, you will see that my file size increased to 1K.1. So just, yeah. So my point is just Webpack works quite well with tree shaking, but also make sure that you're not running something unnecessary, because calling some function, even though that you're not going to use the results, that's going to cause a side effect that means that it's going to be part of your bundle. Yeah. You can ask it, and then I can decide whether or not I want to answer it now. Go for it. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. That's a very good question. That's exactly what's happening right now. Actually, I didn't show. So what's happening here, even though that I'm not calling sum, it's going to include some part of the sum from Lodash, because it is still calling some stuff. If you open like the file, maybe I can open it and show you. From Lodash. Lodash, yes. Oh, wow. Sum. Actually, you know what? I'm importing it from the index, right? So we need to look at the index file first. Good luck finding that. Index. Where? Yes. Index. What? No. Okay. Oh, why did they put everything in one folder? All right. We do something else. We do. Where's the package JSON file? Yeah, there we go. So we need to find the main, which is Lodash. So we need to load that one. So what happens is that after you import the sum, it's going to load this file. And this one is going to load all these files, right, under the hood. Which means that if any individual of every single one of these files, if any of them has any statement calling something or having to like tamper with the Windows object or tamper with the global object, that is going to be included, because Webpack doesn't know if that's going to cause any side effect for the future references. But in this case, we were lucky that the temperament, is that a word? The part that the side effect part that the Lodash did under the hood was very small, very tiny, that you didn't see the effect on it. But some of the other libraries, if you include them, you may end up with the situation where even though that you're not using it, it will cause a headache for you. So I can show you another example actually, since you asked that. So if I use the non-ES version of it, I believe I still can do that. Yeah. So this is going to be 70K and Webpack, because this is going to be CJS, and holy moly, I think that's a door. Yeah, it's hard. So what happens here is that since this is a CJS module, oh yeah, that's true. You don't do this. But seriously, don't do this. Always import from ES. They are essentially the same. They are maintained by the same people. Always use the Lodash ES. But anyways, in this situation, the whole bundle is going to be included, because Webpack, or Uglify.js, I should say, has no idea that all those files that are being run, they don't have any side effect. If you open that file, it's going to be included. Everything is going to be in one file, basically. Has all of the requires and stuff. I don't know if that did that answer the question. No, cool. Better be. Sorry. We are colleagues. There won't be any tension with others. If if you have any questions, I will be very nice. I'm sorry. All right, let's close this. But things get cooler. So let's remove all of this, and let's pose this question for you. So if I have this scenario where I'm importing stuff from my secret file, secret.ali, and then let's console log this. What do you think will happen if I compile this file? If I compile this project with Webpack, if I bundle this? Maybe I should show you my bundle configuration as well. Yes. Yeah. Come. Yes. Maybe I should make it bigger. So this is my Webpack configuration, and that's my entry point. And maybe you should also see my secret. All right. So that's my secret. It's a cat. So what do you think would happen with Webpack? Because it doesn't know how to import it because of the file extension, right? That's the answer that I wanted to get, because the intuition would tell, thank you, no. A beer on me. I was going to wait until someone says that. So that's good. So my intuition was also initially that, oh yeah, the extension is Ali, so yeah, Webpack is going to bail. Well, in fact, it's going to bail because of the content of the file, but not because of the extension of the file. So what I can do here, if I say export default, hello, this is going to run fine. I'll show you. Please work, please work. Yes, and I can run it in my this folder, main.js. It's gonna say hello, all right? So it doesn't really matter the extension of your file. So what Webpack does is just looks at all the files, tries to tokenize them as if they were JavaScript. It doesn't matter the extension. Maybe it would help if I even rename this to something more familiar, like CSS. This would still work, surprisingly. So if I say CSS here, and then if I run it, it would still bundle it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care about the extension. It just cares about the content. Just the same as the browser. The browser also doesn't care about the extension of the file that you're giving it to. It cares about the MIME type. Anyways, so what happens? Because you have been probably involved in projects where you're importing CSS, you're importing less, you're importing SVG, PNG, what have you. How does it work under the hood? So that's where we have loader. So I'm trying to like explain it this way. There's a pain, and then there is a solution for it, right? So let's write one. All right, let's write one for my secret. Nelly. Oh, I already lost it. Let's go back. Discard change. Cool. Git is good. So I have this one, and I want to import from Ali, but I want this to work. If I run this, maybe I should show you. This is gonna bail because a cat is not a valid JavaScript expression. It's gonna say, oh, this is not JavaScript. What do I do? So what I can do is that I can write a loader. I actually wrote it already. It's a file that just export a function that takes a source and then gives you a transformed version of the source. But a loader in Webpack, usually, typically, you should return a JavaScript statement that is understandable by JavaScript engines. In this particular example, since Webpack is using Acorn, it has to be understandable by that. But anyways, so this is my loader. Just takes the source of the file and export something different. So it's going to put the cat here with the code mark and then export default, right? So how do I use it? Yes, source is always string. Well, yes, very good question. No. So we have situations where you want to have loaders back to back. So you pipe loaders back to back. I don't know if you have seen in the situation where you have a less file, you have a less loader, and then CSS loader, and then style loader. So what's going to happen is that the less loader is going to provide something that the CSS loader wants. In this case, it's going to be a string, but it could be something else. So it could be something that the further loader expects you to produce. Yeah, exactly. The end result of that chain has to be a string that is a valid JavaScript. Otherwise, it's going to fail. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It has to always be a string at the end of the chain. The encoding type. Oh, never thought about that. I don't know. Should be UTF-8 maybe? Ooh. Yeah, you have to be worried about the encoding. Never thought about that. Good question. I don't know. Yeah, probably your loader would take care of it, and probably there is a encoding that. Do you? No, wait a second. Strings don't have encoding. You get a string, you send a string back, right? You don't need to care. Webpack does it. It's not like that you're loading the file yourself. You're getting the string that is representation of the file content. So you don't need to care, right? No encoding. Awesome. uh, yes, I hope so. So let's use the loader. This is gonna be weird, by the way. This is the first time I saw it was like, what? I hope you have the same reaction. You will see. So my loader is located at so above the source, like the sibling to the source. It's called loader, and just put a exclamation mark. So what it does, it just tells Webpack while it's parsing my file that yeah, use this loader to parse my file. I can have multiple loaders if I want to, by just adding more, if I had to. I can also pass arguments if I want to, like yeah, name should be 12. And then I can use that information in my loader to decide what I want to do with the file. Yes. Spoiler alert. Let's run this. So this is going to run fine. My cat is converted to an expression. Run it. You don't believe me? All right. Yeah, it's a cat. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, as he said, it is not a very convenient way of using loaders, right? Because like you don't want to repeat yourself for all the CSS files, and this is not how we do things in Webpack either. But this is a handy kind of tool that you can use when you're debugging your code. Anyways, what we want to do is that we want this to work now. We don't want to specify anything here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my Webpack configuration and add a rule module. I'll explain all of this if I can type correctly. Module. That's a module. We have rules for modules. It's an array. And then I have a rule that checks for this specific. I had to copy this because I had problem with /. Don't judge me. So I'm interested in an extension called Ali. And then I want to use a loader for that. And my loader is going to be at loader, right? I'm missing a comma. So this should also work. Well, voila. So that works as well. Woohoo! All right, so loader is that easy. I think. I hope it's easy for you now as well. So this is yeah, this is what you do with loaders. Let's see if I have more examples. Yes, go for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, wow. I would guess so too. Um, but yeah, both of them will run, of course, if you have a test for it. Yeah, hopefully. Um, so yeah, maybe other things that you should know about the rules. Oh, I'll talk about it later. All right, let's go back. Demo time over for now. So that was my first impression a long time ago about Webpack. Was like, okay, is this Babel? Is this what Babel does as well? So who knows what Babel is? Oh, awesome, cool. Who thinks Babel Webpack is Babel? Come on, don't be shy. So I was the only one. All right, cool. So everyone knows it's not a Babel. But how does it know? I actually already spoiled it already. How does it know how our files are connected to each other? Because it gets a piece of string, right? It has to tokenize it, right? Probably. Like it reads a file that is a string. It has to understand what this file is connected to, right? and we call that process tokenizing, parsing, tokenizing, right? How does it do that? Yeah, it builds a graph, but how does it like convert a string into like, does it have its own parser? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone knows what ASD is? All right, a few. All right, cool. Maybe I should show you that first. So this is a ASD Explorer that you can go. It's really a cool website where you can. Oh, there's some writing on the whiteboard. Okay. It converts your JavaScript file on the left to kind of a ASD, which is abstract syntax tree for JavaScript. This is like tokenized completely. So what you can do, for example, here is that you can like traverse it just like a tree. That's why it's called a tree. You can see, oh, there's a for-off statement and has a variable, it has an array, and there's a block statement here. As you can see, when I'm hovering over it, it will also highlight the code on the left side. So this is what ASD tree is. To understand the piece of string that I have on the left, it has to convert it to ASD in order to understand what are the imports. So for example, I will give you, maybe not with the require, but maybe with import foo from foo, right? And this is an import declaration. So what it does, Webpack under the hood, is creates the ASD tree, traverse the tree, and tries to find all the import declaration and some other ones, and then tries to extract that content and then try to locate the file and then carry on creating the graph of dependency. Anyways, I think we diverged a bit. So okay, cool people who don't think that it's the same as Webpack. But yeah, I forgot to say. So Webpack is using Acorn under the hood. Why? Because it's much faster than Babel. Just so you know, if you have heard it somewhere, so you know. Cool. So what happens if I give this file to a Babel? Since everyone knows. Now I expect answer. Who can tell me what this is? Is this JavaScript? Yes. It will be. All right, cool, nice. Extra point if you can tell what stage it is on. 0. Mm-hmm. Stage 4. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, so this is actually a cool functionality in JavaScript that's coming, as Marco said. It's optional chaining, so which means that you don't need to check, oh, if foo is available, go and check for the bar. If bar is available, go check for buzz. And if buzz is a function, call it. So it's like reduces all of that into one very nice notation, which you can express. Anyways, so this kind of syntax, these are not available in the browser right now, at least as far as I know. Maybe Yuri can comment on that. So they're not available. So therefore, we need to give it to a Babel, which is a transpiler. I'm not going to get too much into Babel, but I just wanted to like distinguish Babel with the Webpack, their job in the front-end projects. So what's going to happen for Babel is that it's going to ignore all of these imports. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't care if you're importing CSS, you're importing JavaScript, or you're importing a nonsense. It doesn't care. It doesn't look for those files. It's the Webpack job to look for those files and load them, tokenize them, and find more dependency and create a graph for. Babel's job is only to transpile it so it would be understandable by your client's browsers. That's all. Case closed. This is also fun. Yeah. Yeah, go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Imports, lazy imports, which I will get to, and requires. No, that's not at the beginning. The side effect comes after when you're building it for production, which means when you want to minify your file, when you want to tree shake. Yeah, that happens later. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So anyone? So yeah, I couldn't find a picture where the third cat is also visible. But anyone wants to comment which one would be the third one? what tool is kind of like required for front-end development? uh, you could argue. I mean, you could work offline, right? Electricity. NPM, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You need hands as well for. But anyways, yeah, I was thinking about like ESLint. I don't know if anyone agrees with that. Um, yeah, ESLint, a linter, a good linter, or a prettier. Anyways, so to wrap up, of the options that you can provide for a Webpack configuration, I would categorize them into three pieces. Well, 3.5. The rest, the rest you don't really need to care much. It's not much important to Webpack. So if you can like in your brain like categorize them, I think it would become easier how you can solve a problem, a particular problem in Webpack, or how Webpack works under the hood with only these three options. So we have resolve, we have module, we have plugins. So resolve, what resolve do? Resolve is a way to tell Webpack where to find files. That's what we call a resolver. I think it's pretty global naming as well. So anyways, we have an example here where I have an index file in the project, and I'm importing components from components. It's pretty, yeah, it's the usual import, right? You see it everywhere. So what's going to happen for Webpack is trying to follow the same guidelines as Node.js, which is available here as well. You can take a look at it. It's quite nice, actually. I can show you. It's a huge list of what it should do to resolve that file. I'll explain it in a few slides. And what's going to happen is that it's going to look for a file called components.js, because putting an extension is optional in JavaScript. Well, you can provide it, and also you can override the default one. So yeah, the components is not found, therefore it's going to go to the next step. Is it going to be a folder? If it is going to be a folder, which is a hit, it's going to look for a package.json file. And in this case, in this example that I had, the package.json file was not there. So it's going to default into index.js. Index.js was found. It's going to use that file as a resolved result of this import, and then I'm going to use that file to further the process. We have another example where I'm importing GraphQL from GraphQL. Note that there is no relative path. I'm importing an absolute path. Is it absolute? Yeah. So what's going to happen is that it's going to look for that specific name because it's not relative inside the node module folder. So yeah, it finds a folder. It's going to look for a package.json file. There is a package.json file. This is also relevant when you're importing a relative path as well, just so you know. And then it's going to look into the main part of package.json file. And it's going to pick that file and use that to append it to whatever path it had before, and then use that one to load the file. So one distinction that you should be aware of is that in Webpack 3, it's going to use main. In Webpack 4, it's going to use module, because everything is expected to be modular. Just a distinction. Also, main is a standard way of expressing what is the main file in this folder, in this particular folder for a module. And module is going to be representing a new way of doing things in JavaScript, in Node.js particularly. If you have heard about MJS, yeah, not many people are a fan of it. They use module to distinguish that this is my modules and these are my CJS files. And the way that you can define them, so, yeah, we have a timeout. Let's see. Only 2 minutes? Yeah, all right. I don't see any pizzas though. Ah, I see. My sense of smell is broken. All right, cool. I'll finish it after this slide then. So this is how you configure resolvers for your Webpack. So what you do is that you say that, okay, all the modules that I'm importing absolutely, not relatively, go look for them in node modules folder. But if you couldn't find it there, go look for it in my app folder. So you see often the case in projects you're involved that you import things, absolutely, you say import user component from /component. No, sorry, from component. And then it's going to to find those components in your app folder instead of finding it in the node modules folder. So you can extend that behavior, which is not really recommended, but you can do that. Yes? Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's horrifying, right? Yes, exactly. Thank you for clarification. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So be careful about that. Yes. Uh, yeah. So this is a trick that people use to avoid the import dot slash because you don't want to see that. But a better way of countering that is to actually use what's it called, the monorepo. I don't know if anyone has heard about it. So you can just create a monorepo which consists of multiple packages, and then you can use that packages to those packages to import things absolutely. So look that up. And then we have aliases as well. Aliases is like a new evil, not a new one, but yeah, you can use it for evil purposes. So here, what I'm doing here is that every time that anyone has imported React in my project, is going to load this file instead. It's not going to find React inside the node module and try to find the main file. It's going to load it from here. So I can just write any script here. So it's really good for testing, and it's really good for when you are linking your files, because when you're linking your files in your project, aliases would become very useful. So it will tell the Webpack where to find those files instead of finding those files inside the package itself. Yeah, we will take a break, have a pizza, and then we shall continue. If anyone has a question. Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you.